Okay, in this video I am going over the worksheet that we worked on today in class. I'm reviewing it, giving you all the formulas, and then giving you going over problems 2, 4, and 6 again. I know most of my class periods I did not get to problem 6, but I worked through problem 6 on this video. Okay, I will tell you in most of my class periods we made a mistake on on problem number 4. I'm going to point it out once we get there. So let's go ahead and get started. So in class today we talked about our 5 critical points for the sine and cosine graphs when we're graphing them. Those 5 points are when, hold on, let me change that. Okay, and I'm moving that over here. All right, so the 5 points on the sine graph, they are your initial point when your cycle is starting. On the sine graph, that initial point happens at the sinusoidal line and when x is 0. And then for the sine graph, your maximum point, the midway point between your beginning and the end of your cycle, and then your minimum point. Okay, for the sine graph, these are the 5 critical points you need to know where they are for the parent function, and then where these 5 points will move to when you are transforming your graph. Okay, the formulas for your x and y coordinates, these are the formulas right here, here, and here. We went over these in class. Most of my class periods, we did not have all of these formulas for all 5 critical points. Let's talk about these critical points. Our first point is our starting point. The last point, the 5th point, is our ending point. The 3rd point is the middle of our cycle. And then your 2nd point for the sine graph is your maximum point. And then the 4th point is your minimum point. Okay, so these are the formulas to find the x variables or the x values for these 5 coordinate points. Okay, you might want to write those down if you don't have them. Again, on the worksheet, they do a really good job of telling you where your y values are, the y max, the y minimum, and then the middle, the sinusoidal point. Those formulas work very well. On the worksheet, this formula here is the middle for the middle x value, but it's a typo. This should have been divided by 2 here. So let's go ahead and work on problem number 2 on the worksheet. When you have your formulas, this is your A value, your B value would be 1, this is your C value, and your D value. Notice these are not in alphabetical order. These are the order that you should plot the points or figure out on your graph. This is the transformation order. So the first thing you want to do is find your sinusoidal line. That's this middle dotted line right here. And then to find your y values, forgot to write these up here. So your y values, the sinusoidal line is at 5. Your maximum point is going to be 5 plus 3, so D plus A, that'll give you your maximum. So our max is going to be at 8, and our minimum will be 5 minus 3, so the minimum point is at 2. So on this graph, your sinusoidal line is at 5, your minimum point is at 2, and your maximum point is at 8. Okay, so those are the 3 possible y values. Now for your x values, for your first one, for x is just your c value. So because our c value is pi over 4, we're going to go to pi over 4, which is approximately right here. And for sine, our cycle starts on the sinusoidal line. So this is our first coordinate point. And then the second coordinate point would be the period length divided by 4. Because my b value is 1 and my original period length for sine is 2 pi, to find your period length, you use the formula P and that's going to equal to 2 pi divided by our b value. Okay, that's how we find period. So because b is 1, it's just 2 pi divided by 1, or just 2 pi. So for our second point, we take our period, which is 2 pi, divide it by 4, and then add that to our original c value. So we get 2 pi divided by 4, it just becomes pi, and then plus the pi over 4. Add those together, you get 3 pi over 4. So now 3 pi over 4, your first tick mark is 1 over 4, 2 over 4, 3 over 4 is right here. And the second point for the sine graph is going to be at our maximum. If you look at your original sine graph, you go from the sinusoidal line to your maximum point, back to the sinusoidal line, then down to the minimum point, and then back up to the sinusoidal line. All right, so now our midway point is going to be right here. Those coordinates will be, the x is going to be 5 at our sinusoidal line, and to find the, y value is 5. The x value will be our period length, which is 2 pi divided by 2, which is just pi, and then plus pi over 4. Well, here is pi. The very next tick mark is pi over 4. So our coordinates are, I don't know, what would that be? Let's see, 5 pi over 4. If we wanted to have an improper fraction, you would just say that's at 5 pi over 4. All right, and then our next point is our minimum, right down here. Our y value is 2. And then our x value is going to end up being 7 pi over 4. The way you calculate that out, take your period, which is 2 pi, times it by 3, divide by 4. With our c value being pi over 4, I'm just going to add and multiply everything out. You get 6 pi here, plus another pi gives you 7 pi over 4. It's actually easier just to leave it 7 pi over 4. Just count all your fourth of a pi. So here's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, and 7/4. Okay, so this would be 7 pi over 4, and then our minimum value of 2. Our fifth point is just our c value plus our period length, so 2 pi plus another pi over 4. Well, here's 2 pi, and then another pi over 4 would be here, and then we are back at the sinusoidal line. So the way your sine functions work when you're transforming it, you need to find these 5 points, and then you're just going to continue the pattern on. So right here is going to be my maximum, and down here is my minimum. If you notice, you can count your tick marks. You're going every 2 tick marks, you're getting to either a maximum, a sinusoidal point, or your minimum values, okay? So that's how we did problem number 2. Let's go on to our cosine functions. Again, in the class, we talked about how the cosine parent function has the same type of critical points, but cosine does not start at the origin. It's not going to start on the sinusoidal line. It's starting at its maximum points. So you're going to have these 5 coordinate points, and where you're starting at 0, 1, you hit the sinusoidal line at pi over 2, you get to the minimum at pi, back to the sinusoidal line at 3 pi over 2, and then back up to the maximum point at 2 pi. So that's one complete cycle of the cosine graph. If you notice, your formulas to find the 5 critical points are still the same for your x values. The only difference is instead of starting at the sinusoidal line, now we're going to start with the maximum point, then go to sinusoidal, and then the minimum point. All right, so let's look at number 4. Right here, this is the mistake we made in class. So if we have x plus pi, that's our c value. Because of the plus sign here, our c is actually -4, which means we move to the left I said that was -4, sorry, that's negative pi. We're going to move to the left pi units, okay? So our y values, our sinusoid is at 2, our maximum y is 7, our minimum y is -3, and then we calculate out all of our x values. You can look at these formulas to follow the steps. It just gets kind of crazy here because we're subtracting pi from each unit. It's going to change the x, or it's going to change your x variables, okay? So with this one, your first point is going to end up being down here. Second point is at the origin. Third point, oh, not the origin, I'm sorry. Second point is at the sinusoidal line. Third point is up here. Fourth point is back to the sinusoid. And then the last point is down here. I know this is slightly different from what we did in class. You don't need to, totally rip up your paper, white out everything. Just note that this should be a negative pi instead of a positive pi, okay? In the future, on the other problems, if you have a plus sign here, know that it's a negative c value. All right, let's look at one more example. This is number 6, and I want you to notice that we no longer have increments of pi here. You're going by units of 2, but because our b value is pi over 5, when we are calculating our period, you know what, I'm going to have to back up in just a second because I realized we didn't go over the period for number 4. Sorry, so let's look at this first and then we'll go back. Our period's going to be, let me change that to so we can move down. All right, so we have 2 pi divided by pi over 5. Okay, you have a fraction and a fraction, so you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So you have 5 in the numerator and pi in the denominator. The pi's cancel out and you just have 2 times 5 gives you a period of 10. Okay, let's look back at number 4. I know some of you guys were confused on why the cosine function with this one, we started with a minimum point. If you look back here, cosine is supposed to start with its maximum points and then go down to minimum and then back up to maximum. The reason why we start with minimums is because our a value, our amplitude, is negative, and that means we need to reflect across the sinusoidal line. All right, so let's go back to 6. This is, our period is 10 here. So we don't even have pi in our period. When we're calculating all of our x values, notice we don't have pi anywhere in there. Our c value is 3. So we're really kind of getting rid of the pi symbol here. So our coordinate points, let's see, our c is 3. So we're starting, about right there. And notice this is cosine again. We have a positive amplitude or a value. So we're starting with the maximum point at 3 and 6 and, let's see, 3 and 8, sorry. Our sinusoid is at 2, our maximum is at 8, and our minimum is at -4. So this is our first critical point, second critical point, third critical point, fourth critical point, and then this is the end of the cycle with the 5th critical point. Okay, you can look at the math and see how we're finding these values. And again, the pattern is just going to keep on continuing all the way over and over and over again. Okay, so I'm hoping this video helps you out. Please fix the mistake on problem number 4 and work through problems 1 through 7. Good luck. Hopefully you can have it all done before class on Monday. All right, good night.